Nashville's a huge city, growing all the time. But know what? We are also preserving our precious bottomland in a unique way. And today we're visiting Cooper Creek Farms, really right next to the Cumberland River in this wonderful bottomland. This beautiful rows of carrots, and it is now late March, and they are ready to be harvested and go sit on some consumers' lucky plates. So, Alex, you've got this beautiful 2 acres here, and I see you already have been harvesting some lovely baby carrots. So,
yeah.
When did you get these in the ground?
I sowed these in October, and it was kind of an experiment to see if they would overwinter. I wasn't sure if they would bolt or what, but they've started making some nice little carrots, and we are selling the first ones of these to some chefs this week.
Oh, and certainly a little bit of gourmet action.
Yeah,
there.
They're very gourmet. I mean, they're not all this small, but this is like true baby carrots.
I love these. And I see you have some areas that are tarped.
Mm-hmm.
So are you growing carrots under there?
Yeah, that's what we do to germinate the carrots. They take a very long time, especially this time of year, to germinate. Like this bed that we're standing right next to took a full month to germinate. I sowed them, I think, February 9th, and they came up about March 9th. And what we do to make sure that the soil stays moist that entire time is typically I'll cover it with a silage tarp with the white side up so it doesn't get too hot. And, water it really well or let it get rained on and then cover it. And that holds the moisture in generally long enough for them to germinate. And you just have to check on them every once in a while and make sure that they're not germinating under the tarp and getting leggy.
Alex, this is a beautiful crop of garlic that you have here.
Thank you.
So tell us some of the secrets of growing garlic.
You plant it in the fall. So this is planted around Halloween, more or less. You just take your garlic that you grew the previous year and break it up into individual cloves, and you plant them with the pointy side up. And I like to mulch it. I get leaves from landscapers. They just drop them for free, and that makes a pretty nice mulch. Last year I made the mistake of putting too thick of a layer of mulch, and some of the garlic struggled to come up through it, and some of the garlic rotted because there was just too much moisture being held in. But I think about a 2-3 inch layer of leaves or straw does a nice job of suppressing weeds and holding in moisture through the summer through the early part of the summer when it needs it, and then it's usually ready to harvest around early July or late June sometimes. And it's just kind of a nice plant it and forget it kind of crop.
Okay, this is my kind of crop. Well, we know that you're not supposed to leave the soil just bare throughout the winter.
Yep.
And to some people, this might look like, oh no, I have a lot of work to do. But tell us about this great cover crop you have.
Yeah, so these were beans growing on these trellises in the fall. Well, in the summer, and they ended up in the fall. I think we harvested our last beans sometime in October. And once they were done, these were new beds last year, and I didn't have much compost, so the soil in these beds was a little bit sad, a little low organic matter. And so after the beans were done, around Halloween, about the same time we planted our garlic, I seeded this cover crop, and it's a mix of mostly rye with some peas and some vetch and a couple brassica components, and it kind of just looked about like that tall through most of the winter, and in the last few weeks it's just shot up and it looks really lush. And pretty soon, in about a couple weeks, we're gonna mow it, and then we'll use the power harrow on the BCS to incorporate it, and we're gonna get some things planted on the sides of the beds, and then we'll grow cucumbers up the trellises this year.
Okay, so cover crops in this case have been a wonderful way to keep the weeds down, and now you're building the soil.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of challenges, of course, to starting in a new place. You've been here, what, a year now?
1 year, yep.
Okay, well, I know you have this other technique you're using because the area is lowland, and so it can be a little soggy in the spring. We've all experienced that, so I'm curious to see how you're managing to get into the soil early in the year when it's still moist.
Yeah. This was kind of just a flat area. Last year we didn't have these beds raised, and because I got into this area a bit later, it was probably late April by the time I was prepping these beds. And so, I didn't have much compost at that point. I didn't have much time, so I didn't bother raising them at that point. And we grew a great crop of okra in here and ginger. But this spring, we had a dry enough spell in February that I was able to come through with the rotary plow on the two-wheel tractor and kind of throw a lot of the soil out of the pathways onto the beds and raise them up really, really tall. Then we're going to fill in these kind of trenches, the pathways, with wood chips, and that'll serve a lot of functions. For one, it avoids muddy boots. We can walk around comfortably, and it helps soak up the rain. Like, the rain's going to drain from the beds into the pathways, and the chips will kind of soak it up and keep it from eroding anything. And the beds will dry out faster because they're up high and the water is able to drain out of them. So it'll enable us to work them sooner than we could if it was just a flat piece of ground.
Well, there's a lot of planning and technique that goes into doing these market gardens, and I noticed that you have a place where you're growing a lot of things in the same area, and that has got to be a huge benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we try to pack it in, so we can look at that bed next.
So tell me what all you are plugging away at here.
Yeah, so we're intercropping on this bed here. So we have the trellis. This whole section is going to have kind of permanent trellises, and the beds are kind of a no-till bed, so we won't have to be running a tractor BCS through here anymore now that we've got them built. And so we can play with all sorts of intercropping. So on that side of the bed, there's 3 rows of radishes that I just sowed yesterday. And then on this side, we have a row of collard greens and a row of Napa cabbage. And then once it warms up a little more, we'll plant long beans down the center, and they'll climb up the trellis. And the collards might kind of help them reach the trellis, give them a little support. I don't know, we'll see about that. But yeah, the idea here is just trying to, get more than just one crop out of each bed, and kind of using crops that have sort of complementary heights and shapes and root systems. Even like a good intercrop is like lettuce heads with green onions planted in between them, because the green onions are kind of a long spindly thing. They're not going to shade the lettuce, and the lettuce kind of shading the bases of the green onions will give you a longer white shank and makes them a little more desirable at the market, maybe. And then you're getting 2 crops out of the same space that you would normally get 1.
Well, and I think this is so important as we start to think about farming changing, and farming in our urban counties, like Davidson County here, turning into more urban farming like this. So being able to grow a lot in a smaller area really makes a lot of sense for the grower and the consumer as well.
Yeah, totally.
Now, you have some other tricks and techniques you've been using here to help protect the farm itself, but also to help protect the river. So I want to take a look at those.
Sure, yeah.
I notice, Alex, that you have this set of rows that are running along with the slope of the land, and then you have the rows where we are that are running a different way.
The wrong way.
Oh no, well tell me about the wrong way.
Well, so running the beds across the slope, I thought would be a good thing to kind of catch water and have, reduce the amount we have to irrigate in the summer, and that is true. But when we get a big rain event like a Hurricane Helene, it can be too much water, and it keeps it from being able to exit fast enough. And so what I've had to do is kind of grade the pathways and put in this sort of drainage ditch here to kind of let the water escape, and that's working pretty well now. And also adding wood chips and things to the pathways, that kind of helps slow it down and soak it up. But we do have we do have some runoff that happens during big rains, and so to avoid that going into the natural area over there, the wetland, I'm planting like a buffer hedgerow down here at the bottom of the field that's going to have a bunch of willow trees and elderberry trees and some other things, and we're kind of curving the ditch around to direct the water along that to kind of slow it down and catch any sort of sediment or any sort of excess nutrients that might be heading downhill from our growing area.
Well, and you always have to work with water. You can't work against it.
Yep.
And so I love the idea of having something that's going to help soak it up and, of course, protecting the wetlands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are a certified river-friendly farm by the Cumberland River Compact. They have come out and kind of looked at the practices that we're implementing, including mulching, cover crops, buffer zones. They determined that we are a river-friendly farm, so we're proud of that, and we do all that we can to keep anything bad from going into our local waterways. Like, we don't use any sort of chemical fertilizers or pesticides or anything that could create an issue. We could be certified organic if we wanted to deal with all of the paperwork, but we're not yet. We may go that route at some point.
Well, one of the keys to being an urban farmer seems to be doing a little bit of everything and also catering to a lot of different markets. So I just love the fact that you also have these plant sales that you do so that people can buy food from you, but also start their own.
Yeah.
It's ready to go into the ground in this really neat soil ball configuration.
Yeah, so this is a technique that I learned from Jesse Frost, a farmer in Kentucky who has a great YouTube channel and podcast, and this is how he boosts all of his transplants on his farm. We start everything in soil blocks. These are like mini soil blocks, and then rather than they sell a large soil blocker that does a single block, but it's pretty expensive and it's not really any faster than this. So these are hand-formed soil balls, and you just take a scoop of this kind of wet potting mix in one hand, and you put the plant in the middle, and you take another scoop and sandwich it, and then you kind of squeeze and spin, squeeze the water out, and then you get this little pear-shaped soil ball, and the plants do great in them. The roots kind of reach the outside and they pause. It's called air pruning. And it leads to a plant that, it's never going to become pot bound, and it just has very little transplant shock because all those roots are just kind of poised, ready to shoot out in a nice, healthy pattern. So we do this for our longer season crops on the farm that we need to boost up from the smaller soil blocks, and then we also do it for our plant sales, and we sell them completely plastic free. We display them in little muffin tins, and then people can take them home in little French fry bags or these pulp coffee drink carriers. So it's a nice way to get some really healthy plants for your garden and not have to deal with any plastic at the end.
Well, this is really great, and I really want to encourage everyone to think about all of the work that goes into farming, and especially in the small farming markets. You will certainly learn a lot of great tips that you can use at home. Well, thank you so much for watching, and if you liked this video, you're going to love everything else that we have in our archives and running currently. In fact, you're going to see home tours, you're going to see specialty gardens, you're going to learn tips that will just blow you away as you end up with a better garden because of it. So please go to our channel, Click subscribe and continue watching. See you next time.